Chapter 4. Rejuvenation. The first ordeal. No sooner had I agreed to follow through with the procedures thought up by my son than he signaled the assembled creatures to go away. He grasped hold of my hand, and we ran down to the lake. Vladimir stopped several times along the way and picked some herbs in various places, which he softened and rolled into a ball. When the ball was ready, he instructed me to eat it, which I did. And in just a few minutes I noticed a heavy drip of snot exuding from my nose, and I began to vomit. It seemed that all my stomach juices had been pumped out. I was unable to speak for all the vomiting, while Vladimir explained, "That is good, Papa. Do not be afraid. It is good for all that useless stuff to come out of you. Only a pure state will remain. This is what they do in the cases of poisoning." I was physically unable to offer any kind of answer, but thought to myself, that's true. Poisoning victims drink tablets which produce nausea and vomiting. There are laxatives, of course, like castor oil, but what do I need this ordeal for? I haven't been poisoned. As though he had tuned in to my question, Vladimir explained, "You, of course, have not been poisoned, Papa, but the food that you have been consuming is right on the verge of having a poisoning effect. Just let go of everything filthy inside you." After the vomiting and the discharge of the phlegm from my nose, along with a copious flow of tears from my eyes, I began having a series of soft bowel movements, and 5 times I ended up running into the bushes for a lengthy period. The whole procedure lasted 2 to 3 hours. Then came relief. "Now do you feel better, Papa? Better than before, eh?" "Yes," I affirmed. The second ordeal. Vladimir once again took a hold of my hand, and off we ran. When we reached the shore of the lake, he instructed me to wash myself and swim around a bit. Upon coming out of the water, I noticed him extracting a clay jar from a hole in the ground, about 1.5 liters in size. "Now, Papa, you need to drink this water. It is called dead water, because it contains very few microbes. This water should not be drunk if the air is polluted. But we have pure air here, so it is all right to drink the dead water. It will rinse your insides and cleanse them, and wash out a lot of microbes and bacteria from your body. Drink as much as you can, Papa. When you have drunk up this whole jar, I shall give you another, and when you have finished that, I shall give you a 3rd jar containing living water. All the microbes and bacteria you need will be restored in a balance that is just right for you." I should point out right off that Vladimir and his family consider dead water to be that found at great depths below the Earth's surface and containing a minimum of bacteria. I believe our mineral water in bottles is precisely what they call dead water. In any case, I think all of our drinking water is dead water, and that is why our children suffer from dysbacteriosis, especially newborns. Living water, on the other hand, they consider to be surface water from pure streams or bodies of water, a few of which have indeed been preserved in the depths of the Siberian taiga. There's something I wish to emphasize here. Grandfather later explained to me that spring water is not considered living water when you drink it right out of the spring. To be considered living water, it must first be kept for 3 hours or so in a wooden or clay vessel with a wide neck. Living water needs to absorb sunlight, he'd said. With the aid of sunlight, organisms are generated which are indispensable to human life. You call them microbes and bacteria. Then the water should stand in the shade for at least another 3 hours. After that, it can be drunk as living water. The third ordeal. So take a drink whenever you feel like it, Papa. In the meantime, we shall proceed to the next phase. Usually for people polluted by the outside world, this whole process takes about 19 days, Grandfather said, though it is even better to stretch it out over the course of 33 days. Since you do not have that kind of time, I have shortened it for you down to 3 days, and we shall manage. Come with me to another spot. I've set up a particular device there. We walked about 100 meters away from the lake, and there, amidst a group of trees, I saw a place prepared for me to lie down, made of dried grasses. Next to this lay 4 ropes made of woven nettle fibers or flax. At one end of each rope there was a noose, while the other was tied to a tree. After I lay down, Vladimir put each of my hands and feet through a noose, tugged on them a little, and began tightening them with the aid of sticks placed halfway along each rope. After a little tugging, as though trying to literally quarter my body, he jerked each of my hands and feet in turn. I could feel a crunch in my joints. Then he tightened the rope even more, saying, "Papa, you need to lie like this for an hour on your stomach and an hour on your back. And so that it will not be boring for you, and even more beneficial, I shall give you an invigorating massage. You can just relax, or even go to sleep if you like." My son and I went through this procedure 2 hours each day, on all 3 days. As I later found out from Grandfather, this procedure served to lubricate all my joints. It's especially important for elderly people. It can add to one's height since it straightens out the spinal column, but the main benefit is the lubrication of joints. Think about it, when we walk or run or work out in the gym to pump up all our muscles, almost all exercises involve increased pressure on our joints. In Vladimira's procedure, though, it is exactly the opposite. The pressure is taken off. Each time during the stretching procedure, Vladimir gave me a massage. On the second day, he rubbed down my body with some sort of Swedish juice or tea, and a whole lot of insects crawled all over me. I had been told earlier by Anastasia that they served to cleanse the pores of my skin. See Book 1, Chapter 25. In our own living conditions, the pores of the skin can be cleansed by going to a Russian banya, or applying, for example, a birch besom. When a man steams and sweats, the pores of his skin are cleansed too. Footnote, banya, birch besom. See footnote 20 in Book 2, Chapter 1. Besoms may be made from other types of wood as well, oak or juniper. Interspersed with the stretching procedures, we did some fairly common exercises: running, swimming, chinning ourselves on the bough of a tree, using it as one would an exercise bar. About 3 times a day, Vladimir suggested I do a handstand, head down, and hold the position for as long as I possibly could. I stood like that, my legs leaning against a tree trunk. This, too, is a rather interesting procedure. A lot of blood rushes to one's face, making it tense up and causing a lot of smoothing of wrinkles. For the whole 3 days, we lived on cedar milk, flower pollen, cedar nut oil, berries, and a small quantity of dried mushrooms. All of this is available in our society. Going through all the procedures thought up by my son and reflecting on how they could be adapted to our conditions, I came to the general conclusion that all this can be done effectively back at home. One could even use body-cleansing agents available in pharmacies, as well as make use of diuretic remedies and fasting. It is not difficult to obtain dead water either. All water sold in bottles today is dead water. You can get living water too if you have access to a pure wellspring. You begin to feel the healing effects of these procedures right off. A mysterious procedure. But included in this set of procedures was a rather mysterious one, which would be quite a challenge to replicate under our conditions, although maybe someone will have an idea and let me know. I shall describe it in detail. 3 times a day, morning, just before lunch, and just after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, more or less, my son gave me some tea to drink, which he had prepared. Each time when the hour came for me to take that tea, Vladimir would run off to his hiding place and bring back a small jar of this tea, which he invited me to drink, but no more than 1 swallow at a time. The first time he did this, he said, "Take a drink of this tea, Papa, and remember how big a swallow that you took. As soon as you have drunk it, lie down on the grass, and I shall listen to what is happening with your heart." I drank the tea and lay down on the grass. Vladimir put his little hand on my chest and kept very still. Within a few moments, I felt either a warming or tingling sensation in different parts of my body. My heart began to beat furiously. It wasn't as though it had started beating any faster. I had the sensation of my heart muscles expanding normally, but contracting much more sharply than usual, forcing out the blood. As I was later informed by specialists, in cases of a vigorous and sharp blood flow through places where the capillary vessels are partially blocked, warming and tingling sensations can be expected. Vladimir listened to my heartbeat for several minutes and then said, "Everything is fine, Papa. Your heart can actually withstand an even larger swallow, but it is best not to take any chances. The next time, take a slightly smaller swallow. When I asked my son why he was giving me this tea and what its composition was, he replied as follows. This tea, Papa, will give you a great deal of strength and help you recover from any diseases you may have. But most importantly, it will enable you to discover the strength and energy that you will need for the birth of my sister. What, do you think I don't have enough already? Perhaps, but now you will have the strength and energy in abundance and in the exact balance that you need. Are they permanent, or will I use them up with the birth of the child? For bearing subsequent children, you will need to drink this tea once more. After all, they do it this way each time. And just who might they be? Sables and other animals. I only studied the sable's actions. It was grandfather who advised me as to when, at what time, and for how many days I needed to watch them in particular. How does grandfather know about all that? Grandfather, you see, Papa, has all the knowledge of the great wise priests of yore, even knowledge that has been forgotten by the priests of today, and even knowledge that was secret many thousands of years ago. This tea was taken by the priests before the birth of their children, also before death, so that they could remain immortal. What do you mean before death, so that they could remain immortal? Well, I mean so that everyone would think that they were dead, whereas in fact they had only changed bodies and were reincarnated on the spot, and then all their information stayed with them. There are other methods of quick reincarnation, but very few that will allow the retention of the information possessed at the time of death. That is why people can be reborn, but still have to study life all over again, learn everything right from scratch, and they are unable to compare the present world with the past. And they get confused in their lives because they include no knowledge of life and no feelings capable of sensing God. But with grandfather, all the information about the past, you're saying, has been retained. Yes, Papa, our grandfather is a great priest and a wise man. There is only one person living on the earth today who significantly surpasses him in power. Where is he living right now, this strongest and wisest one? Do you know? You must be talking about the high priest, right? I'm talking about our Mama Anastasia, Papa. Anastasia? How could she have more information and a greater knowledge than your great-grandfather? Grandfather says he is hindered by too much information, and he can forget things, but Mama experiences no such hindrance because there is no information contained in her. What do you mean? Which is it? Does she really know more, or she has no knowledge at all? I did not express myself quite accurately, Papa. With Mama Anastasia, all the information, how shall I put it? She has a great deal more, only it is compressed in the form of feelings. Whenever she needs to, she is able to feel in a single moment something that grandfather might require a day or two, or even more, to think about. I can't say I understand everything you've said, but it is interesting. Tell me more. What about you? Does this mean that you don't possess information about the past, seeing that you've had to consult with grandfather? That's correct. Why? You mean to say that you're mentally inferior to them? To grandfather and great-grandfather? What do they tell you about this? Grandfather probably tells you that I'm to blame? Grandfather never told me anything like that. But what about Mama? What did she say? I asked Mama why I do not know as much as my forebears, and not much as she or even you, Papa. And this was her answer. All truths of the universe, son, and all the information accumulated right from its pristine origins, has always been available to every man, nothing hidden. Not everybody is capable of understanding it and making it their own, because their life goals and the aspirations of their souls do not correspond to those of the universe. Man has free will in everything, and is free to choose a path other than that of the universe. But God is free too as to when, how, and to whom he gives a hint. You must not worry about information that is lacking in you. Seek out your dream, and know that the whole will be offered to you in full if the dream that is born within you is worthy of co-creation. So tell me, Vladimir, what do you make of all of that? Once my dream and life goal are created in all their detail, all the knowledge I need to turn the dream into reality will be born in me, all on its own, without fail. But in the meantime, then, you'll go on consulting with grandfather? Yes, with grandfather and Mama and you. I shall try to ponder life all on my own. Does that mean I have to consult with grandfather about the recipe for the extraordinary tea you've been giving me for the past 3 days? When it comes to the recipe, I can tell you about that myself. Then tell me. This recipe was prepared using taiga herbs, so that I would be able to know which herbs to choose and in what correlation. For 3 days and nights I observed a sable, one that likewise had an aspiration to be a father. Grandfather told me that the female sable will not allow her mate to approach her if he fails to prepare himself properly, and I observed what herbs that he ate during those days, at what time he chose to pick them. That too turned out to be important. All the herbs he ate I gathered as well, only I had to gather a larger store of them, since you, Papa, I can tell, weigh quite a bit more than a sable. Once I had gathered samples of a particular kind of herb, I would put them into a vessel and grind them down with a pestle until a juice emerged. All this time I thought only good and pleasant thoughts about you, Papa, and Mama, and about my future sister. Then I would take the paste which resulted and empty it into a clay jar. I poured water over the jar's contents and added cedar oil so that it formed a film on top. When you drank that swallow of tea, Father, and your heart started beating a bit faster, I could tell that the tea had turned out well. As I listened to my son, I thought, not many people have the opportunity to observe a sable in its natural surroundings, but perhaps they could keep watch on what herbs a cat or a dog eats, for example. For that, it would be necessary to carry or transport these pets into a forest and follow their behavior, and if possible, identify which herbs they ate. I was most interested in the tea recipe which my son followed, since just 3 days using it produced a palpable effect, which Vladimir had indicated to a complete therapy course ought to last either 19 or 33 days. That means that after a full-term course in combination with other exercises, man really can free himself from many ills, halt his body's aging process, and rejuvenate himself in some sense of the word. I want to stress that even this 3-day application in practice confirms that such an effect is possible. Then there is folk wisdom, too, to take into account, as well as the scientific basis of these procedures. Of course, people have gone to chemists or drugstores and seen the herbal mixtures our pharmaceutical industry has to offer for the treatment of a variety of ailments. Footnote, in Russia today, almost all pharmacies carry a large selection of dried medicinal plants with their healing properties clearly marked on each package. Many know that in nature there are a whole lot of medicinal plants, but not everyone knows that these can only really be effective either prophylactically or therapeutically if they are picked on the right day and at the right time of day. As to preparing herbal mixtures along with everything else must be considered the way medicinal herbs correlate with each other. As we can see, there are too many factors that need to be known in order to prepare a mixture like Vladia's. And it is highly doubtful whether any of our herbal healers today know about all of the factors involved. I very much wanted to take this opportunity of presenting as a gift to my readers a recipe for body restoration never before published anywhere in the world, and in a simpler form than Velagia's so that it will be easily accessible to the majority of people. Directly, my son's 3-day therapy course came to an end. He informed me he would like to go to bed earlier than was his custom. It turned out that he barely managed to get 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night for the past 3 nights, and he dozed off immediately while I started heading back towards Anastasia's glade. I was fascinated by 2 questions. First, why did our son not possess a knowledge of the past as did grandfather? And secondly, was there any way of simplifying the recipe for the tea which he had prepared for me? A vision. Thoughts of food, however, were gradually relegated to the back burner as I began to concentrate more and more on the thoughts of my future daughter. On the one hand, it wouldn't be a bad thing at all if Anastasia gave birth to a daughter as well as a son. But on the other hand, when this daughter gets older, she will either have her own space or inherit the space created by my son and face the same problems Velagia is having to deal with right now. Besides, who could she possibly marry here in the taiga? She could go off into our world, but that wouldn't be easy either. It would mean leaving her own space and her loyal animal friends, and I can't imagine any young man agreeing to come and live with her in the taiga. It's not all that comfortable here in the wilds for someone from the outside, and to be honest about it, that includes me. It is interesting to talk with Anastasia. I would even say her company is alluring. When I'm with her, I feel a sense of peace and joy in my heart. But when I'm left all alone and she's not around, I feel uncomfortable, to say the least, even a bit fearful. The creatures treat Anastasia and our son quite differently from me. Of course, they don't attack me, but whenever we meet, they still regard me with an air of suspicion. I once attempted, in Anastasia's presence, to command the squirrels to bring me some cedar cones. I made the same gestures as Anastasia, but there was no reaction from the squirrels. Another time I tried to call the she-wolf. Just like Anastasia, I held out my hand to her, then clapped it against my thigh. But instead of running toward me, she stood rooted to the spot, and her hackles stood on end in a show of aggression. And I lost any desire to further communicate with these creatures. I realized that they could be loyal only to one specific man in perpetuity. So it could turn out that some young man comes to see our daughter in the taiga and he will not feel comfortable in her space. Velagia has not given sufficient thought to his sister's future. Turns out he feels sorry for the creatures, but apparently not for his sister. And I didn't think about it either. I absent-mindedly gave him encouragement. Immersed in these thoughts, I was surprised to discover that I had already arrived at Anastasia's glade. No sooner had I taken a few steps in the direction of the familiar dugout than I noticed Anastasia herself standing there, her body half turned to me, combing her long hair with her hands. I stopped dead in my tracks. She did not look at all like the same woman that I had known for the past 10 years. When she turned to face me, my legs became jelly. My heart began throbbing, and I realized I could not move from the spot. Just 10 to 15 paces from me stood a woman who looked the picture of a fairy tale vision. She was wearing a long, sheer, light-colored dress down to her ankles, almost like a ball gown, gathered with a belt around her slender waist. Her head was crowned with a wreath woven of grasses and flowers, like a diadem. Her golden hair hung in wavelets around her shoulders. But that wasn't all. Her stately figure and face were so beautiful as to defy any possible description. I stood there, afraid to move, my gaze unblinkingly fixed on Anastasia. It seemed as though if I took my eyes away, I would lose consciousness. My head began spinning, but I continued to gaze at her without blinking. I found myself digging my nails forcefully into my hand, seeking escape and pain from this extraordinary state of mind. But I hardly felt any pain at all. And as this uniquely beautiful woman gradually and graciously approached me, I lost all sensation, not just of pain, but of any part of my physique. She slowly came right up to me, and I recall feeling the enchanting, fragrance of her body. I could sense her light breathing, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was lying on the ground. Anastasia was standing beside me, massaging my temples and the bridge of my nose. Her diadem wreath was gone. Her hair was brushed back and tied with a blade of grass. I felt an almost complete calm as I gazed into those tender, grayish-blue eyes which had become so dear to me. And I finally came to myself upon hearing her voice. "What happened to you, Vladimir? Did you get overtired? Did our son somehow upset you?" "Our son? No, quite to the contrary. He's been giving me treatments these past 3 days. We went through a series of exercises." "And you overexerted yourselves?" "Vladimir did. He fell asleep. By contrast, I've begun to feel very good, indeed." "Then why did you lose consciousness? Your heart was throbbing, and it still has not completely calmed down." "Because... Anastasia, why did you dress up that way? Your hair's somehow different. The way you walked as you approached me, that was unusual too." "I wanted to do something nice for you, Vladimir. After all, you are more accustomed to look at women in fancy clothes. I thought you and I could take a walk together through the taiga or along the lake shore. And here you are lying down. If you want to have a rest, let us go to the dugout, and there you can have a nap." "First, let's go and take a walk as you proposed," I said as I rose to my feet. "Only you, Anastasia, walk behind me, please." "Why?" "Because, yes, I'm more accustomed to looking at women in fancy clothes, as you say, but it is better for me if you don't dress up that way, or wear your hair like that, or adorn yourself like that." "You did not like the way I looked, Vladimir?" inquired Anastasia, as she trotted along behind me. "That's not it. I liked it very much. Only in future, do it just one step at a time. Your hair first, for example, and then spend some time wearing it that way, and then you can put on your diadem wreath. And a day or two later, the dress, only without the belt to start with. Afterward, you can put on the belt. You see, if you do everything at once, it's really hard for me to get accustomed to. It looks strange." "Strange? Does that mean that you did not recognize me, Vladimir?" "I recognized you, but it's just that I was simply overwhelmed with your beauty, Anastasia." "Ha ha, you admit it. You admit it. That means you really think I am beautiful?" I felt her hands resting on my shoulders, and I stopped. Then I closed my eyes, turned around, and replied, "You, Anastasia, are not just beautiful. You are..." She pressed herself against me, putting her head on my shoulder. "Our son, Anastasia," I went on in a whisper, "would like to have a little sister. And I would like you and me, Vladimir, to have a daughter," Anastasia quietly responded. "May she have your looks, Anastasia. And may our daughter be like you." I shall not describe that night, or the following morning. They are beyond description. But I shall say one thing to my men readers. If any of you manage to see a goddess in the woman that you know, your days and nights, many, many days and nights, in fact, will be divine. All the miseries of the past will vanish before them, and there will be no more storms to darken your days. I'm not talking about sentimentality here, nor beautiful words and professions of love. The whole point is, in any case, let each figure it out for themselves, if they can, and wish to do so.